Ukraine has now taken a bold and unprecedented step in its defense against Russian aggression. For the first time, it has used long-range missiles supplied by the United States to strike targets inside Russian territory, a development with massive implications for the ongoing conflict and the global balance of power. According to Russian sources, 6 missiles were fired at a military facility in Bryansk, a border region near Kursk, where Ukrainian military forces are currently positioned. Russia claims to have intercepted 5 of the 6 missiles, but the fact remains, U.S.-made weapons are now being used in ways that were once unimaginable at the war's outset. This shift comes on the heels of President Biden's decision to approve the use of these longer-range missiles, a move that has intensified an already precarious situation. This new phase of the war carries enormous stakes. Russia has consistently warned that such actions could draw NATO and the U.S. deeper into the conflict. Just recently, Vladimir Putin signed a revised nuclear doctrine that considers conventional attacks by multiple powers, particularly those backed by nuclear nations, as grounds for a nuclear response. However, despite the alarmist tone of this policy shift, it appears more likely aimed at posturing for domestic audiences and deterring external threats rather than signaling an imminent nuclear escalation. The Biden administration's decision to grant Ukraine this capability comes at a pivotal moment. It coincides with the 1,000th day of a war that has seen Ukraine consistently outmaneuver a much larger Russian military. Observers believe this move is part of a strategic effort to strengthen Ukraine's position on the battlefield before potential peace negotiations under a new U.S. administration. Donald Trump, the incoming president-elect, has signaled a desire to end the conflict swiftly, possibly by pressuring Ukraine to make territorial concessions. By empowering Ukraine now, Biden's team aims to bolster Kiev's leverage ahead of any such negotiations. European allies like Britain and France, long hesitant to provide similar permissions for their advanced weaponry, may now follow the U.S. lead, further fortifying Ukraine's military capability during this critical window. While some fear this development could escalate the war further, others see it as a necessary step to counter Russia's continued aggression, including recent reports of sabotage against undersea cables and courier facilities in Europe. It also comes amidst growing concerns about North Korean troops bolstering Russian forces, a concerning sign of Moscow's attempts to expand its alliances. The next steps remain uncertain. Will Russia escalate in response to this new phase of the conflict, or will it resort to symbolic gestures like cyber attacks and sabotage, rather than direct military confrontation? And as Trump's presidency looms, will his administration seek to unravel these recent developments, potentially leaving Ukraine in a precarious position? For now, this marks a turning point, with American weapons reshaping the battlefield and geopolitical stakes rising to unprecedented levels. This moment is not just about missiles or borders. It's a decisive chapter in a war that continues to reshape the global order. Stay with us for more updates and analysis as we navigate this critical and fast-changing story. As Ukraine pushes forward with these newly approved weapons, it faces a complex and shifting geopolitical landscape. The Biden administration's decision not only tests Russia's red lines, but also the resolve of allies and adversaries alike. European nations, previously cautious about allowing their long-range systems to be used against Russian territory, may now reconsider. Britain's Storm Shadow missiles, for instance, could become part of this expanding arsenal, providing Ukraine with further strategic advantages. But this bold step also raises questions about the Biden administration's timing. Why now? Analysts suggest it's a calculated gamble to capitalize on the limited time remaining before Trump assumes office. By enabling Ukraine to strike deeper into Russia, Biden is forcing the Kremlin to reconsider its tactics while hedging against Trump potentially reversing this policy. Yet it's also a signal to European allies. The U.S. won't back down in supporting Ukraine, even as the global focus shifts toward potential diplomacy. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin is under mounting pressure at home. His revised nuclear doctrine may serve as a rallying cry for domestic audiences, emphasizing Russia's status as a nuclear power. However, this comes against the backdrop of a Russian military struggling to maintain its position against an emboldened Ukrainian force. Recent Ukrainian advances and the use of long-range weaponry only add to the strain, making it clear that Moscow is grappling with significant challenges on the battlefield. In this tense environment, Putin's options are limited. While Russia could escalate through unconventional means, cyber attacks, economic sabotage, or intensified strikes on civilian infrastructure, it is unclear if the Kremlin has the capacity or international backing to sustain a broader conflict. Even China, one of Russia's key allies, appears wary of endorsing moves that could further destabilize the region, particularly with Trump's impending return to the White House. For Ukraine, the stakes couldn't be higher. These strikes into Russian territory send a clear message. Kyiv is prepared to defend itself, even against threats that extend beyond its borders. President Zelensky has remained measured, refusing to officially confirm the strikes while emphasizing Ukraine's right to defend its sovereignty. Missiles will speak for themselves, he has said, a poignant reminder of the heavy toll this war continues to exact on both sides. As the 1,000th day of this conflict passes, it's clear that Ukraine is no longer simply holding the line. With U.S. support, it is actively reshaping the dynamics of the war, demonstrating that it will not be coerced into submission. However, this newfound capability comes with risks. How will Russia respond? Will Putin see this as a red line crossed, or will his government's response remain rhetorical and symbolic, aimed at maintaining domestic support without further escalating the war? At the same time, the focus is shifting toward what happens next diplomatically. Trump has promised swift negotiations between Moscow and Kyiv, but his vision of peace may come at a steep price for Ukraine. If Trump pushes for concessions, Ukraine will need every bit of leverage it can muster, making this current phase of the war all the more critical. Biden's strategy appears to be setting the stage for these negotiations by strengthening Ukraine's position now, even as time runs short. And yet, even this calculated strategy carries uncertainties. Russia's saber-rattling, North Korea's involvement, and the fractured unity among European nations all contribute to an increasingly volatile situation. The war's outcome no longer hinges solely on the battlefield, but on how effectively the West can present a united front in the face of mounting challenges. This moment, marked by U.S.-made missiles crossing into Russian territory, is not just another chapter in the war, it's a turning point. The decisions made in the coming weeks will ripple far beyond Ukraine's borders, influencing global politics, security alliances, and the fragile balance of power for years to come. As the world watches, the stakes have never been higher. As Ukraine takes this bold step, the world watches closely, knowing the stakes have never been higher. Stay informed with us as we bring you the latest updates and in-depth analysis on this evolving situation. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with all the breaking news. Your engagement helps us bring you more impactful stories.